Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry we're starting a little late. It's quite a trek down to this room, so welcome this afternoon. So to kick off, this is a panel exploring the leading edge of global residential markets and looking at innovation, architecture and design within the branded residence space. I'm sure all of us who've attended today, we've heard a lot about the growth of this sector. It's astonishing, actually. I've been involved in global residential real estate for over 15 years, and I think the growth of this particular sector is extremely exciting and actually lends itself so well to innovation. So hopefully, throughout this discussion, we can examine that a little bit more closely. So, by way of introduction, I'm Andy Hawkins. I work for Savills in the UK, and I head up global residential development sales. So essentially, I work with brands, developers, operators to ensure that we are promoting and marketing the residential branded residence, the residential real estate to key markets in the most appropriate way. And my panel, Mark.
Thanks, Andy. Mark Eacott. I'm the head of design for Ennismore globally, but also specializing in our branded residential products.
Hi, everyone. I'm Federica Grignolo from Studio Carter, associate there, and we're an international interior design firm specialized in hospitality projects and, well, branded residences now, too.
Hi, Phil Gillard from Arquitectonica. And we're going to be talking about a few of the trends that we're starting to see from Miami and all across the world, which is going to be very interesting for everyone here, the six of you.
I should also say that Wissal was due to join us, but unfortunately for a family emergency, she can't. So she sends her best wishes. So let's kick off. So first of all, my first victim. Mark, I think everyone's very aware of the bringing together of Ennismore and Eacott relatively recently, which has led to a huge kind of stable of pretty astonishing brands. What does that mean for Ennismore, and what are you guys doing to innovate and move things forward?
Yeah, and particularly in standalone branded residential. I think our strategy for this sector has been play to your strengths. Okay, we have these 17 incredibly experiential brands, a lot of those experiences around that elevated F&B that we're very good at, and all of that's rooted in strong design, unique storytelling. So all those three things, and of course we're a hospitality brand at the end of it, so we're providing that service, which was talked about a lot. I think how we are innovating, keeping to those four kind of strengths is really, one of it's through the brands we're offering. It's great that Hasni mentioned it. Increasing that demographic. It was always the usual suspects that we put into the branded resi pot. And as of this year, we brought in 25 Hours, we brought in Hyde. So as well as our sort of uber luxury brands, we're really bringing in some of these brands on the premium level that really play into Uber lifestyle.
Sure.
And the response to that has been interesting. Not only are we widening the demographic to the Gen Zs, those buyers, but we're also getting CEOs and that buying into a 25 Hours because they see that asset brand protection. So it's worked both ways.
Yeah.
And super brand. So that's on what we're doing, innovating in terms of what brands we're bringing into to that. And also with our F&B. To have an Ennismore standalone branded resi, as we're working with Hasni and some other developers, you have to have our F&B component. If it's not F&B, it's not Ennismore. That's part of our DNA. And so now you're getting that, you're getting the F&B from a renowned independent F&B operator on the property, part of that, part of the asset as well.
Okay.
And lastly, I think it's just innovating through programming. When we program the amenities and working with Federica and Felipe, we don't throw that book of the cigar lounge, the screening room, the golf simulator. We do have, that's the last things we add. What we do is we're providing amenities that are market-driven and appropriate to each of our brands. Do they speak the language of the brand? So, for example, in Hyde, the brand is about love for live music. We put in a kind of music room, a listening room where you can play music, you can have DJ lessons, this kind of thing. So appropriate to the brand. In Madrid, with Federica, Madrid is the second popular city in the world for podcasting. So we put in a podcast studio that can flip to a snug in a room. So it's about, treating each one unique, making market-appropriate amenities appropriate to our brand. And that's sort of what we're doing and how we're innovating.
Great. I just want to push you a little bit on the brands that you look after, and obviously it's all around delivering a certain standard, a certain level of service. And you need people to deliver that service. What are the challenges that you face around that in terms of recruitment in your locations across the world, and just training people appropriately?
I think, look, we're lucky. We're a hospitality group at heart. We're not the watch company that they mentioned, and so we have those expertise. We have those teams. I think what is the challenge has been getting enough of them for the boom in the market right now, keeping up with that, especially at that senior front of house level. And so what we've got is a kind of migration attraction program. So you have someone who is in a hotel, they're a director of front office, and we can offer them a kind of mini GM role, being a director of residences in a standalone branded resi. So there's that kind of cross-pollination of our teams in terms of that service that we can dip into that pool, but it is a challenge. But look, without that level of service, design and programming, we're a badge, we're a logo. And so for us, we have certain test points to make sure that after we've walked away and we've opened the doors, they keep the standards. And so just a couple of examples is, annually we have a audit, a brand standards audit. So we go to the property, are you keeping up with these certain criteria score? We have engagement surveys with the residents, checking on service and things like that. And of course, then we expect owners to do the FF&E upgrades like you would in a hotel.
Okay.
So that's how we keep a level on the service standards,
And just on those standalone projects, Federica, I want to bring you in on this a little bit. Certainly from a salesperson's point of view, we're seeing more and more people spending longer periods of time in a branded residence. It's not a holiday home. It's a place that they are living for extended periods, especially in urban locations. So from a design point of view, how do you respond to this? How are you kind of influencing the design to respond to changing buyer needs?
So I think in the project that Mark mentioned in SLS Infantas in Madrid, to respond to these long period stays or longer, the main challenge there was functionally it is your storage space. We're speaking about high buying clients who have fashion wardrobes throughout winter, summer. Madrid particularly is a city which has a fluctuation of temperatures seasonally. Winter is very cold, summer is very hot. So the challenge in this one was how do we make that function happen in a listed building? We worked on a beautiful classical building and the space is limited. So the work was really how do we maximize the storage space without making like your full wall of wardrobe, but how do we keep that clean show apartment look at the same time with the functionality? And the answer to that was how we developed together with the brand, the storage in the basement. So every apartment has a dedicated storage space where you can have that turnover happen for your longer seasonal stays.
Thank you. And then obviously we're in Dubai. You can see some incredible architecture that's already existing and being built. What would you say for those people who are looking to develop a branded residence and it's an existing building or they need to take into account specific local architecture? How does that influence things?
So again, for the project in Madrid, I think we were in the right place at the right time. We have an office in Madrid, and most of us are deeply connected to the city, so we were able to deliver that feel. Let's say that when you're a buyer coming from abroad, you want to feel you are in the locale of that space. So in this particular instance, in Spain, and we had the privilege of working on this building, which is a classical building. It was built in the 1920s from a theater architect. Eduardo Sanchez, I think, Esnarraga, and you do see the theatrical part in the building. So all these details in the facade and the playfulness of these details and this beautiful dome we have at the top. So you want to enhance that, and it was a great canvas to bring in the SLS DNA, because the Baroque, the opulence, it sort of was there. And we had to bring in the fun, the creative part, which SLS has, but with the local feel. So you then dig deep into, let's say, Madrid has this say, which is de Madrid al cielo, no? From Madrid to the sky. And so bringing in these colors of these sunsets, how you use those with the stones you select, or the local crafts using wicker in different ways. They have this font which we brought in for the signage, and these tiles from Talavera de la Reina is a town outside Madrid which does traditional but very vibrant yellow, green, blue tiles, and we brought it in on the signature item of the brand. And also with your surroundings, you really want to feel you are connected to where the building is. We have this long table on the rooftop, which is just in axis with the street, which comes against the building. And it's just that impactfulness, these moments that we kind of bring into the project.
Just to add, I mean, before Federica, phase 0, getting the right brand for that historical project, that building. So Louis sent us and said, go see it and intuitively what brand you think it's going to be. Yeah. It's not like it has to be, the business plan is a Delano. The building, the architecture lended itself in the innate world of SLS. It's got to be that. And I think that is getting it right. So you asked what the takeaway is, make the right brand selection for an existing building that can lend itself and talk to the brand.
Yeah. So let's go into the detail a bit more. And this is probably a question for both of you two, actually. I heard someone earlier talk about, the amenity arms race, which I thought was spot on. How do you both see communal residence amenity becoming ever more useful, ever more practical, ever more what owners and occupiers want? Federica.
Well, I think to answer that, there are 2 points for us, and one thing is making them special in every different project, and the other one is ticking, let's say, the boxes of a balanced life. So for the first point, you really have this special, the residence amenities bring in this high-end hotel level of attention. I mean, all your needs are covered, sorry. And so you want it to be this special thing which you want to be proud of and show off to you being a buyer, to your family, friends, business partners. So I think that is one side of things. And then the balanced life is, at the end of the day, what are we all looking for? What's important? Family. So you have your apartment, work. You need to have those spaces which allow you to work in all the different situations you feel like that day or you need. If it's a meeting, if it's being alone, if it's being with other people and socializing. Then there's the socializing part, but more at a party level, I think, and that you sort of cover with, we have in Madrid this rooftop, which is spectacular. You just have this 360 view all across the city, and you're just ready to plug in your DJ, bring in your catering, and this space is just set up for success in that way. And finally, the wellness, which isn't just fitness, spa, of course, the pools, but in this project, we had a challenge of these kind of nooks and crannies on the rooftop, on the layout, and how you create these more secluded spaces like the yoga, the meditation, and sort of catering to all that you need throughout the day.
And Philip, your take. I mean, I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspective from a US point of view. I mean, we all know that the home of branded residences is in the US, and you've been involved heavily in a Cipriani project in Miami quite recently.
I think on top of everything that's just been said, what you can look at the financials and say, right, what am I paying for? But you have to go back, as Mark was saying, to the DNA of the brand. Yeah. So the Cipriani in Miami very quickly is 3 towers. The tallest is 80 stories. but it's still very nautical, it's still very Venetian. It has the private dining. It has that exclusivity with private lifts to your apartment. You know, it has those things that, irrespective of where you are around the world, it's very, very Cipriani. I mean, when you look at those amenities, the F&B is so special, okay? And I think when you then flip that and look at places in Monaco that we're working in, that's not just desirable, it's mandatory. So then you say, well, what amenity is going to unlock this development? In our development, it's an international school, so that the very wealthy people stay there instead of sending their kids to Switzerland. So that unlocks it. And I think part of working on a global basis is that all the different regional influences start to overlap, meld, create this very interesting sort of, maybe not an amenity arms war, race or whatever, but it's very much about simplifying. And not to say that anyone gets it right every time. I think Nick Candy, I mean, I've known him for years, and he's right. Hopefully you get more right than wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but when you then start to say, okay, does a Cipriani, does a Fendi Chateau, does a whatever brand suit this site, as Mark said, it almost comes alive when you're visiting these sites, and therefore the amenities are almost already there in your mind as you're designing it, because the brand is so perfect, if that makes sense.
I think it's really interesting, and you know, again, when we're all thinking about delivering these projects and deciding, you know, who will eventually live there, I think, you know, as the buyer profile changes, you know, someone's idea of luxury changes as well. You know, so obviously it needs to be superb quality, that the service needs to be there, but I think, you know, just to touch a little bit more on the use of amenity space, you know, what do you think people perceive as a luxury amenity? What type of amenity? I mean, you touched on schooling, for example.
Yeah.
Now, what other you know, amenities do you think buyers will want?
Pretty much everything. You know, we're doing ones where there are, you know, bolt-on English private schools in Florida, in Miami. We're doing ones where, you know, it's a different spin on wellness. It's medical. It's you know, you've got that there. I think part of the thing is that the profile of those sorts of developments, the buyer is getting younger.
Yeah.
They're more savvy. They're more into sustainability. They're more into garden space. They're more into being connected to nature and landscape. In the Fendi Chateau that we've recently finished, for example, it's not a tower. It's just 12 stories. And they didn't want a tower. Whereas, on the other hand, you have a tower that Messi's just taken the top floor of, and it's one apartment per floor. So you get those extremes. And I think the branded residences that we're starting to look at here, and in Saudi, you're not looking at things that are necessarily different, but they're just perhaps culturally and regionally more appropriate.
Sure. And Federica, you know, specifically on you know, ID, you know, how are you responding to that specifically in terms of, you know, wellness and even healthcare, which is becoming, you know, really important for lots of people around the world?
Well, where to start on wellness? We actually are working right now on it must be similar to you, Philippe, but in the Red Sea on a completely wellness-focused resort. So it goes beyond. I mean, your typical spa is just not there anymore. It is medical, and we have branded residences on this project, and you just see how it's coming into the branded residence. Also, we have private gyms, multifunction rooms, yoga decks, indoor, outdoor, meditation gardens. As you say, it's very important, the indoor-outdoor connection. They have like this bath that can be covered and become a treatment bed. and they have access to this whole world of wellness, the medical center, where I think every day and every month we're discovering like new diseases, conditions based on this high level life which has been going on, stresses, tiredness, overworking. And so there is this response to how do you cure that, and how does that you respond to that? And it is a market which you just keep learning. As we do the project, new things are just coming in all the time, and you need to reshuffle it. And I think for branded residences in the future, it really is something that that is going to become so part of it, and it would be great if it could actually be tailored to the buyer prior to being in the property, because there's just so much also from wellness companies which is coming out as a plug-and-play item. I just seen some here also, like brain waves, and how in a second they help you sleep, and another one they put you up all nice and perked up for your speech or whatever. So I do think it's something which is so much in motion, and that we'll have to watch very closely.
I mean, let's just hope, the future apartment just helps us all get a really good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. Mark, I wanted to come back to you a little bit more, just on the perspective, your perspective on the future. Let's look at beyond, what's being delivered at the moment, or the stuff that you're currently working on. Are there any, concepts or little sneaky secrets or insights you can give people here today on what you're looking at, what Ennismore is looking at for the future?
Sure, yeah, a little taste is, my background was Soho House, members clubs, then with you, with branded resi. So it's been nice to now sort of merge these, inspired by both these worlds. And the clubhouses or residence lounges that we create in the branded properties become like a membership club. We're also in not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So how it works is your service charge not only gets you one in the building, but what if that unlocked that when you bought in Madrid, but you're in Gold Coast, Australia, and you could pop into the SLS branded resi there and have access to a certain portion of the amenities there, and take a meeting there. And so suddenly you're then becomes part of a global membership club. There's lots of problems with that in terms of operation, but we've got that, and so I think the privacy is there. We know who you are. But there's also that thing that we mentioned earlier, was that we get you, we know what you like, we know what you want, we know what drinks you like, all that preferences and data we have, and so that's a comfort for guests. But what if your branded residence then became your network of a sort of global membership club? I think also taking that a little bit further, especially working with Federica, is how we design that clubhouse, social house, that we call it the summer house, we call it the social house, different per brands, is what members clubs are incredibly good at, but like you go to a hotel club lounge are very bad at, is that daytime. They just drop in the day. So for us, again, it's design program, the programming element. How do we activate these during the day, so that they become that energy, whether I go, 9 in the morning, 1 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night. And there was a whole thing, from the Nick Jones mindset was, I come for a glass of wine, I stay for the bottle. If we have everything on site, why do you need to leave? You can go and use the gym in the morning, you can meet someone for lunch, you can rent a room and work there all day. And then people come to you, you can get your guests in. So I think since the pandemic, of course, there was that fear of what if we go down into lockdown again? But what if everything's on the location? You have the best restaurant in town, you have that members club access. So the way that's what we're doing in New, but the way we're designing the spaces, that ability to do that. We're finding with residents, it wasn't about meeting, come up to my apartment. They were like, come meet me in the lounge, let's sign the deal, let's have a small meeting. And so creating those small snugs, spaces, a library with a fireplace, you're giving that bit of smaller privacy spaces. Even for the boardroom becomes a space for your excom to come over to your residence on the palm. It's connected to a chef's table, so you can then elevate that and connect those experiences together. So yeah, that's a bit of a...
But just on that, I think the privacy point there is important, isn't it? I mean, that sound, the home is becoming more than just a home. It's a place to do business. People are working from home. It's much more. But how do you make sure the privacy is there for the residents? Because you might have a family who lives next door who it's very private. You know, their home is their home, and for them, they want to lock the door, and that's that. How do you make sure you've got that privacy that people often yearn for?
No, and that's a good point, and it's good we mentioned Cipriani, because they have Harry's Bar, or the bar that you can get to up on there. They have a dedicated restaurant. And you don't want to be sharing the elevator with people at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. You've just got for a red-eye flight. You've lost all that privacy. So I think fundamental phase zero with architects and everyone, separate elevators that get that independent for those amenity spaces. I talked about in the lounges having these private nooks, even with Federica, in the gym, right? So creating that private, so I've just paid $4 million for my euros for my apartment, and now I've got to go to a gym and share it with other people. What if you could create a gym within the gym, private spaces, or I can bring my private trainer in, I'm a female, I just want to work out my own. So Federica divided up the gym, so you never get the full space, so it feels like a private home gym, but in a clever way. And of course, then just lastly, security. Everyone has to be pre-registered. We know who you are from deliveries, but also your guests. It's not like, let's send him up. It's like, no, you have to come down. They have to be accompanied, bring to your residence or meet you there. So it's from an operations level, from a design level, and innovation in the amenities to give you that exclusive privacy that as an ultra high net worth individual is what you're asking for.
And Philip, obviously, we touched a little about the lift access at Cipriani. Are there other things that you could give examples where you've really thought about privacy and residence access and the use of that space?
I think the key word is exclusivity. And when you zone even single-use buildings with those things, they almost become more mixed use.
Yeah.
So, and to Mark's point, that almost secure line through technology has to blend and change over the course of the day, the week, the month. So what was secure is now open, and vice versa. So I think it doesn't really matter what the amenity is. We're working with a couple of brands, one on the Palm at the moment, who will have something amazing, which will be announced in end of the year. And I think one of the things about that is everyone's trying to innovate, but it also has to stay authentic. If it's trendy or faddy or anything, no, it's part of your DNA. It's part of. So if it's, let's say, Auberge, where's their story? They came from Napa, beautiful food, beautiful wine, add the hospitality, but don't lose, the DNA of that beautiful food and beautiful wine. So, when we look at these, our design inspiration is always coming back to those first principles.
Yeah.
I think, someone said, we look at the plans. Bernardo, I'm not sure if he's here, he's doing a speech next door. He always says, wow, but we sell with the finger. Yeah. Because the furniture, the plans, just everything. So efficiency, not just where it comes to amenities, but also every single square meter. In certain locations, particularly with repositioning, you have to maximize every square meter. And it's not necessarily the rooms are the biggest, the lobby's the biggest. If you take a brand that's very well known in Paris and move it to Saudi Arabia, there is no lobby. Yeah. Because people know you're coming. So that concierge service, that's part of their DNA. We're starting to see that move to offices. So the chap that was in the next door, CBRE, took an office off of Caruso in LA. They don't want to leave because their laundry is in their car when it's valeted. The meal that they want for their kids is in a nice box on their front seat. So, their rents are going up, and that concierge service is something that we're starting to see a lot more of.
I think the word that you used that made my ears prick up was authenticity, and I think that's so true, isn't it, across lots of different, what we're all talking about here, especially when we're talking about innovation. I think we've got time for one final question, and it's for you, Philip. We, Savills, are getting asked more and more by a younger generation of buyers about sustainability and the long-term future of the property that they're buying. What's your view, and how are you adopting those principles in the buildings that you're designing?
You're asking me because I'm the oldest on the panel. Fantastic. I think, to what Mark and Federica have talked about in Madrid, we're starting to see a lot more repositioning, a lot more reuse of existing assets. Not everything is a new tower. And I think sustainability, particularly in terms of the economic and the socio agenda, is all part of it. Life cycle. These young guys, however they've made their money, like I said, they're way more savvy. They're way more in tune. They're asking how it's built, all of those things. But I think part of that story can also be speed to market. So when we're repositioning the building, stripping the facade, taking the weight out of the building, adding levels, putting it back on, for them is part of their story. Sure. So we're starting to see more of those things. But when people talk about green things, it's not just the bolt-ons. It's really what's there in terms of how they want to live. And that's why they choose brand A versus brand E or whatever. I think it's a great point to kind of end on, isn't it? That fundamentally people want the value of their home to maintain or grow. And I think if it's well built, well maintained, with a brand that's centered around quality and service, then the fundamentals of value are there. But thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for your insights. Thank you.
Pleasure to speak to you. Any questions? Yep.
My name is Glenn. I work for Hawkins, which is a hotel asset company. So we have a home downtown, which is we have Copley, Honeycomb, and a bakery in the ground floor. So my question is, the Granite Residence at the Home Hotel, how does the F&B strategy, when you work with the likes of Ennismore, how does that, is there a difference? So, because our hotel, when we switched to, we looked at GM, all sorts of people, let's do Italian restaurant, let's do Japanese. There was no thought process of how the neighborhood would like it. So how does Ennismore come in and say, well, I've got an amazing design. How does the F&B work? And is there a difference between Granite Residence and a hotel? Because maybe in the future we will do something. So
Sure.
For me, I like to know, is there a difference or not?
Sure. And look, I think we mentioned at the start, one of our keys, play to your strengths. Our strengths are obviously in the incredibly experiential brands we have, but also in that elevated F&B. We know F&B. We're good at F&B. We just won the best restaurateur in Dubai with Eacott Group, who are now brands under Ennismore. So what we're delivering now, and of course we won't take a standalone brand residence project unless it has an F&B component that is Ennismore brand concept or managed or equivalent, because that's true to our roots and authentic. If it didn't have that, it wouldn't be us. And I think obviously you get that power of strength. You not only get the deal guy, the design guy, you get the F&B guy at phase zero who are programming and working out what is going to work in that community, what's working for that residence. We talk about sustainability. We're looking at our ethos is leave a place better than you found it. We're bringing back, we're regenerating that community. So I think that's how we deliver differently in terms of that F&B that's connected, but also it's tied back to the brand. What's going to work well with that brand for those buyers? Because they're buying, like I said, without the design programming and service and standards, we're a badge. And so for us, that is part of what we're delivering on in terms of those returns. But back to the clubhouse, the membership club idea, the idea of never having to leave, like we talked about with Nick Candy, was and the Soho House model was that if everything is on site in that model there, and I can invite, exclusive guests over and have this is what we're buying into, and this is what we're offered. But with us, you get that F&B from an F&B expert. And so it's not me, it's my colleague who's F&B, and it's not a hotel group trying to do F&B brands. And those F&B brands that we deliver are as best as any independent in the city. In fact, they were the best of the independent in the city. So that's the real difference from Ennismore, from other operators. Leaving hotel aside, talking about branded resi, that's what we bring. We have to have the F&B content because it's true to what we do. So, but yeah, let's have a chat. It'd be great. And Honeycomb, we're a fan of, so it's great F&B you have on your property. Yeah, they're doing. And yeah. And then it's a privacy issue, like we talked about. How do you keep the exclusivity in a branded resi when you have the one of the best bars in the city in that building, okay? So that's where, between designers, architects, we can do that. Like Hasni said, we're there to help guide, direct, and fail safe and make sure we don't have any issues with that, so. Yeah. Look, programming where things go, the chess pieces, we call that's the key access. And making sure, like in Madrid, we have a rooftop, but it's not for public, right? It's the residents. It's their event, their space, it's their playground. And maybe on the corner, there's an amazing Ennismore F&B on the corner that's public and private. But what we did there, talking about amenities races, there's a PDR that's the restaurant, but also can flip to the clubhouse and be residents only. So on like a Thursday night, a resident could perhaps book this 8-seater, become a boardroom. So how do we stop that daytime lull of these clubhouses, we talked about, by making spaces that can have this duality to it?
I think as well, fundamentally, if you're buying a property in the centre of a busy city and with restaurants around, there's going to be some movement, there's going to be some noise, right? So I think as long as people are aware of what's happening, then it's normally pretty okay.
Good question, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Hello.
Yeah, just a quick question about amenity build and service charge, because we see, maybe my experience, maybe say that I'm wrong, that people don't mind spending the square meters spend, but the service charge becomes contentious. The more you put in, the more service charge is, and so on. So any thoughts about that, particularly from Miami, where these things are going in, restaurants going in, service charges going back in 2 years' time, maybe becomes a problem for either for new buyers or people flipping their apartment?
Yeah, we've had a number of those conversations, absolutely. And I think it's from what we see in terms of the DNA of the, if you took your property, the profile of the buyer in that area, I'm trying to be very sensitive. Let's just say there's a specific target ethnicity, etc., that you might be profiling with a certain development. And that happens all through. When you do that, you really then have to, as Mark says, play to your strengths. So A, the age range. B, who's the decision maker. Normally in a particular environment, the guy might say, I love it, but the lady might say, it's too masculine, if it's a car brand or certain things like that sometimes. You also then have perhaps a parent who's buying for their children at university or things like that. That happens quite a bit. So it does become really buying into that lifestyle. So for example, the Ritz Residences as a standalone in Sunny Isles. Yes, it has the amenities you'd expect with a Ritz, but at the same time, it has those connections that Mark was talking about. So the parents can use it. So in actual fact, the profile of that building is extremely young. And we're starting to see that in Saudi. Obviously, Saudi is a very young country. And so the amenities are more profiled towards a younger generation than perhaps, not the stereotypical cigar lounge or driving simulator or golf thing, but much more perhaps gaming, much more, younger things, and young families as well.
Mm. Yeah, I just wanted to just quickly on that point. I mean, the service charge question is a problem we're seeing globally. It's an issue for in all parts of the world. But I think what people are saying is, just let us know what this is for. All of it. Yeah. Let's have some transparency. Let's understand what I'm paying for. And I think once you've done that, people understand, and they've bought the property. They want the service. But I also think it's a point about what we design. So if we're thinking about ongoing cost and kind of service charge inflation, what is it in the building that's costing us so much money? Often it's the staffing.
Staff.
But are there other things that we can do with the building to make sure that it's designed in a way that is keeps costs to a minimum over a longer period of time.
But just the takeaway is that the key unlocking this is staff-light approach.
Yeah.
When we started off with Federica, we're putting in bars in, spas in. You just screwed up the service charge. There's a person there, there's a person there. Yeah. And the whole biggest thing about branded resi is you make a big lobby and everyone drives in underneath and goes straight up. Yeah. So can you reduce staffing? One person there, this person can dual as this. Yeah. The spa, maybe you don't have to have a dedicated spa person there all the time. Maybe it's we call BOIO, bring your own treatment, right? You bring your guru, your IV drip. Yeah. So staff-light approach, 150 units, we're looking at 30 staff maximum, whereas a hotel, 200. So it's retraining our teams, the designer, to think with this mentality. We're not going to have a barman standing there all the time, etc. This unlocks the service charge. Back to your question, Emlyn, was a good question, really reducing that, because the killer is obviously staffing.
Yeah. Thanks. Anyone else? No?
Cool.
I think we're done. Well done, team.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.